Hello everyone, I am Shruti.
And I'm Vikas.
Welcome back to Finance Ke Funde. Here we seek to simplify personal finance for you and discuss about topics that all of us can relate with in our day-to-day lives. In our last episode, we spoke about how we invest differently at different stages of our life, primarily focusing on our 20s and 30s. Today, we are going to take this a step forward and talk about how one can think about their personal finance journey in their 40s and 50s. Because, I've noticed that most of the families have more than 80% of their net worth tied in the real estate asset class. जब मैंने कुछ लोगों से बात करी तो I realized there are, one of the three reasons why people largely do this. एक तो ये है कि they have surplus money coming in, cash flow surplus होता है, and they feel like real estate is the safest bet. Second, I've seen that people feel that they've seen their parents earning a rental income. So they think that this is a good option. This is you get a tangible passive income. And third, which I think is a very big reason, is people are not aware of anything else to invest in. I was talking to this couple in Hyderabad and they had 3 to 4 houses. And the reason, they were a young couple, 37, 38 years old. And they said that we didn't know where else to invest in. Baki har cheez se hame dar lagta hai. So we just end up, buying houses.
Yeah, Shruti, so I think so you have raised a very pertinent point, and when I think about these things, a lot of us go through a similar kind of emotion. So when I look back in my family, my parents have invested in some real estate, it generated some rental income and it is appreciated also. But what I feel is that what people miss out on is that they don't understand that in real estate you're not actually calculating what is the return that you get in a longer period of time. So I take an example that we have a client who had invested in a real estate at 40 lakh rupees in Indore. It appreciated to 80 lakhs in 5 years, but he kept on holding it, and in the next 5 years the appreciation was nothing. So what happened is that over a 10-year period he generated I would say a suboptimal return, but he felt that there is appreciation and he made some money. So what happens is that when anyone is allocating to real estate, the safety net that money does not go down, it goes only up, gives them a comfort. But the flip side is that if you are invested in a real estate asset for a very, very long period of time, you have to see that what is the actual returns that you've generated. And specifically, this is for people who have done it for an investment purpose. So real estate आप दो तरीके से कर सकते हो. आप खुद के consumption के लिए कर सकते हो, and you can do it for your investment. For your self-consumption, there is nothing that you need to calculate. This is an expense that you have done, and you're enjoying your stay at your own home. But when it becomes an investment, you have to calculate what is the return that you're generating, because for most of the people who are generally salaried people or who are having limited kind of net worth, for them this becomes a significant allocation. And if your significant allocation is not giving you decent returns, this definitely needs a lookout. On top of that, like you said rightly, there are some people who do not know that there are other asset classes also. For this also, I think so, a lot of people have not experienced wealth creation through financial assets. So this is something which we have not seen in our earlier generation. Some people have not seen this in their families. So because of that, there is an apprehension to volatility. But I think slowly things are changing. People are seeing that equities or growth assets, risk assets can also create wealth, and a significant portion is coming to financial assets. And this is very well, we can see in the numbers that there's a mixed change in the Indian household savings and investment. So this is a welcome change, and I think that this is a change which has just started, and we'll see a lot more of it.
Yes, that's right. I think the concept of safety, comes from the fact that it's a tangible asset. आपको दिख रहा है वो घर and वो property, and you feel that ये कहीं नहीं जा रहा है, right? So I think that is where that concept of value, the fact that you can see it in front of you, that safety comes from that. But I think today's topic is not real estate. Maybe we can have another series at some other point. But I think it is easier to think about diversification when we think about our financial. So अगर आपको, let's say आपको पता है कि आपका your son is let's say in class 10 and you know कि 2-3 साल में higher education fund करना है, तो आप equity में जाके पैसे नहीं लगाओगे, right? Instead of that, you will think about कि मैं कहाँ पैसे लगाऊं जहां से मैं 2-3 साल में निकाल सकता हूँ. As opposed to that, if you have a long term goal, आपका बच्चा 4 साल का है, आपको पता है 10 साल बाद पैसे चाहिए, you can think about wealth creation over a long period of time. So I think the whole concept of diversification becomes very easy when we bucket our finances in terms of financial goals. and also assign timelines to it. Don't you think so?
Yeah, so this is something which I have seen happen with me also and with a lot of other people. So what happens is that whenever you link your goals to your financial assets or your assets, your decision making improves. This is what I feel, that like if say suppose some people I know, they link some of the investments in the name of their kid only. So they say that this is for kids education, and what I see is that if even if suppose they want to redeem, that is the last asset that they want to redeem. Even if say suppose it is for buying a house, so they try to segregate this. So what happens is that whenever you're linking your assets to your goals, there's a very very good psychological allocation your mind starts doing, and that helps you plan your finances in a much better manner.
So because you mentioned about, how goals shift as you move into your 30s and 40s, and when I speak to a lot of people in their 40s, I think one of the key goals that they have at that time is retirement planning. Because I think as you move into your 40s, you start thinking about the next phase of life, and especially after mid 40s, I've seen that people start wondering if they have enough number of years left to plan for their retirement.
Yeah, so see, what I think is that obviously if you're starting at 30, you are having an inherent advantage. But if you're in 40s and if you've not started, today is the best time to start. So you have to anyway start. Now, if you have to think about the good things that when you're starting at 40 is that you are reasonably settled in your career, you have a house, you know your financial goals, so the uncertainty element is gone, and you still have 15-20 years of active employment left. And if you think about 15-20 years, it is not a small it is not less number of years, right? So if you can plan for 15-20 years, you still have a lot of time to allocate to growth assets, and you can still reach your retirement goal. So people who are in their 40s, I would request that it's okay, you can definitely start, and if you plan well, you may have to allocate slightly higher resources.
Yes, I think you're right, Vikas, in the sense that, for people who have not done enough for the retirement planning as they step into their 40s, what we need to realize is it's very difficult to have a sufficient retirement corpus if you have not grown your surplus money at a rate which is more than the growth in your expenses, which is inflation, right? So अगर आप growth assets में invest नहीं करोगे तो sufficient retirement corpus accumulate करना तो बहुत difficult है. Now, I think that risk has two aspects to it. One is that आप कितना risk लेना चाहते हो. There are some people who will naturally come and tell you कि नहीं, I'm comfortable with volatility, आप invest करो. And then there are some, and then the second aspect is कि आपको कितनी risk लेने की जरूरत है. So I think with this category of people that we are talking about who have not done enough, I think the risk लेने की जरूरत वाला aspect is more important. And like you said that, with a little bit of risk education, it is possible to actually evolve the risk appetite and take some steps. Start करना जरूरी है. Take some steps to at least experience the asset class with a percentage of your net worth which probably does not matter. वो थोड़ा volatile भी रहेगा, नीचे भी जाएगा. It will not, you will not lose sleep over it. So that's one way to start creating your retirement corpus. But what I've also seen is that as one inches closer to retirement, let's say they're 48, 49, 50, 51, the risk appetite just starts reducing.
I think there are two kinds of people when they are closing their retirement. There are people who are primarily dependent on their investment income to fund their lifestyle expenses, and there are some people who have some other sources of income, maybe some consultancy, or even if they are funding it through their investment portfolio, the funding percentage is quite low. But for people, say suppose who are funding say 4-5% of their investment portfolio for their expenses, for them obviously the risk appetite reduces, and over there the right education has to be given that you cannot take higher risk, because during market downturns, if you are withdrawing from your assets and if that is going down, so it can have a significant impact, right? But for people who are having low expenses and they're not dependent on their investments for the day-to-day expenses, say suppose they have pension income or say they have rental income, and they're not increasing their income, so they can plan it differently, I feel. So they have to think that what is the money which is lying there for. If they have certain other goals, maybe it can be inheritance, maybe it can be a goal which is 5-10 years away. So for those kind of people, risk taking depends upon the cash flow needs in the next 5 years. Like you said that each family has to decide what is their requirement of cash flows and what is the corpus available. Accordingly, they have to allocate their resources and take an informed decision. We have heard a lot about SIP, but people who are in the 40s, 50s, they should also understand that SW also becomes an important way to manage your finances when you are nearing your retirement. Because with SWP, what happens is that you can create cash flows on a monthly basis from your investments that you have done in mutual funds or other asset classes also. Now with SWP, there can be some discomfort to some people that you are withdrawing your capital also, but you need not look at it in that way. SWP is a process of taking money out of your investments, and you have to see what is the withdrawal rate. I think SWP is more about withdrawal rate than you are only eating your interest income. So we've been always thinking that we should not eat our principal, we should eat only interest. But SWP is more about a thought process where you are thinking what is the withdrawal rate from your net worth, and that helps you take a better decision and allocate your resources in a better manner. So people should try and understand more about SWP and how it can help them in their investment planning is something which you should look into.
Yeah, I agree. I think SWP is a great option, and I have also tried to explain SWP to a lot of families. But I feel that somewhere the adoption rate is really, really low. And like you rightly said, I think the aversion to the concept of SWP comes from the fact that, जैसे लोगों को आदत है FD के इंटरेस्ट को यूज करने की. Now SWP में it is partially gains and partially your capital. वो आप पूंजी जो निकाल रहे हो उससे बहुत aversion होता है उस एज में लोगों को, because of which people don't adopt an SWP strategy, although that is more tax efficient. If you have a reasonable withdrawal rate, it can last a lifetime. There's a part of your asset which is growing. You are not subject to interest rate risk. But I feel that is still very, very low. I mean, let's say there is a family who does not want to do SWP. I mean, do you think there is a way out for them?
Yeah, so you rightly said there is some aversion to SWP, but one of the ways through which you can structure a SWP portfolio is that you can park your 3 to 4 years of expenses in a debt fund, okay, and you can do an SWP from there, and the remaining assets which are not being used for your day-to-day expenses, those you can park in equity, mutual funds, or other kind of growth assets that you can find. So in this case, what happens is that you have a clear certainty that for the next 3-4 years, my expenses are fully funded. Any kind of volatility in the market will not affect me, and I'm not withdrawing from my equity funds during drawdowns, right? And your equity asset class also gets 4-5 years to compound. In this, if suppose there is a market upturn, then you can replenish some of your debt fund. You can again bring back your asset allocation, and remaining money you can keep it for your growth. In this, what happens is the advantage is that you need not withdraw during market correction, and you always book out some gains during market upturns. So this is one way through which you can plan your retirement portfolio, and this is more pertinent to people who actually need some allocation. So they do not have sufficient capital to meet their expenses for 20-30 years. So for them to beat inflation, this can be a handy tool.
So I think fundamentally what people need to think about is how sufficient is their corpus. अगर आपका corpus sufficient नहीं है to last for 20-30 years, then you know that it is inevitable to have a portion of capital allocated to growth assets, which is largely mutual funds or equity or some form of growth capital. और अगर growth asset करना है, then SWP is a more structured, reliable way of ensuring कि आपका cash flow भी meet हो जाए and part of your assets keep growing. And what you suggested that taking that whole headache off your mind for the first few years by keeping it in debt funds and withdrawing from there, whereas letting rest of your capital grow at equity rates is a good strategy to give time to the markets, at the same time knowing that next 3 to 5 years your lifestyle does not get impacted. So that's it for today's Finance Ke Funde. Retirement planning is a journey and does not happen in a single day. Whether you are in your 20s, 30s, 40s or 50s, it is never too late to start. We hope that this episode was helpful. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe our video and subscribe to our YouTube series. And do stay tuned to our next episode where we are going to talk about more personal finance topics. In case you have any questions, do reach out to us. You can drop in the questions as comments, you can message us directly, you can reach out to our team. We would be more than happy to help you.